So hi, yeah, let's talk about this band splitter again for just a second. So we created this last time around, and it breaks up a signal based off of the octave ranges of a bass guitar, and of course all into the upper ranges too. How nice and spiffy. Okay, so yeah, the question came up of, well, what do you do with it now that you have it? Naturally, it's a very good question. Glad you asked. One of the things that I find most useful is a multiband sidechain compressor. Yeah, that's three big words in relatively close proximity to one another. Quite a pain to say. What does it do? What's the point? What's the purpose? It's a very good question. Okay, so what I have is a snippet of one of my songs from last year, soloed out. Okay, yeah. And with that, I thought that I would add a sample to it. And this is the cheesiest sample I could find, a dialogue sample. So I thought I'd go with this.
Hello, all you people out there in Gameland.
Stole it from archive.org, and if you don't know what archive.org is, it is a source for public domain and Creative Commons sound files and old movies, and this particular thing, it was something that fell out of copyright, and so I snagged it.
Hello, all you people out there in Gameland.
And it's awesome. So I thought when my drums come in, what I would do is I would add this sample in.
Hello, all you people out there in Gameland.
Okay, so now you've got this problem here is you can't really hear what he's saying. Not that it's very easy to understand him to begin with, but that's beside the point. What do you do about that situation? Well, you can decrease the volume of your sound bed. That works just fine. You can increase the sound of your sample. The volume rather, not the sound of it. But, you know, eventually you're going to run into clipping. And, well, that's bad, right? We don't want to do it. So, you have heard of sidechain compressing. And what that does is when you receive signal, you got your main sound bed going through a compressor, and you've got another signal, in this case our dialogue, that will, let's see, here it is right here. You see on the back of this mix channel titled Resignation, we have a sidechain input. You could plug a split of the dialogue sample in there, flip over to your handy-dandy mixer, and turn on the compressor here, and set up the threshold, and it will activate the compressor based off the sound that comes in from the sidechain rather than the sound that's coming in from the main bed. So in an effort to make this as streamlined as possible, good luck with that, I've set those up already. And what we have here is the original bed, just a clip. Okay. And with the sample.
Hello, all you people out there in Gameland.
Now, if you run it through the SSL compressor and you use the sidechain, you'll see, and this is with really, really heavy compression, obviously enough, that there will be a drastic reduction in the volume output of your sound bed. If you see this blue clip, I hope that's blue, I'm colorblind, there's a big valley here where our dialogue sample sits. So it sounds like
Hello, all you people out there in Gameland.
a lot more present, a lot more clear.
Hello, all you people out there in Gameland.
And that's great and all, but you know, you can also hear this little bit here at the end
Gameland.
where the volume increases back up, and it's like, okay, yeah, it feels like somebody's got their hand on the fader and they brought it down, and now they brought it back up, and there's this annoying kind of amateurish sound to it.
Hello, all you people out there in Gameland.
Okay, and so what can you do about that? Well, you know, you can shorten the release. And that's what I did here. If you'll notice that the between these two words on bar 9 here, there's a bit of a spike or a bump where the compressor starts to relax a little bit, but it doesn't quite come back up to its full glory. You'll notice over here I made the release as fast as possible, and sure enough, you know, you've got a lot more feed here, and that sounds like...
Hello, all you people out there in Gameland.
That's even worse. Okay, so it's no good. You know, because you've got this pulsing music bed up under your dialogue.
Hello, all you people out there in Gameland.
And while the dialogue is much clearer, it's, you know, cheesy to have your sound bed popping in and out like that, like you're some kind of amateur radio guy. Okay, so where do we go from here? Well, that's where the multiband sidechain compressor comes in. Rather than having the entirety of this dialogue thing compressing the entirety of the sound bed, what we do is we divide each one into, in this case, 9 different bands, and we compress each of those 9 different bands based on the 9 different bands of the dialogue sample. Clear as mud, right? Okay, well, I have these tracks here. L1 would be low 1, the second octave of the lows, the third octave of the lows, mids, etc., etc. Let's bounce all those things open. And what I did was I ran them through our 9-band split, and this is what the waveforms now look like. Okay, so this is the sample, the dialogue sample, and we'll just listen to a couple of these. Alright, so that's the mid one of, you know, where you're actually starting to see some activity. On these other ones, you don't see a whole lot, but the first middle band, you're starting to get some activity going on the waveform at least. The second middle band,
Hello, all you people out there in Gameland.
Starting to get a little bit more clarity, and you can actually hear kind of what he's saying.
Hello, all you people out there in Gameland.
Okay, so now you can actually hear what he's saying. Great. Now, the second chunk of waveforms is the entire sound bed split into the 9 parts. So, you know, for instance, that same middle band.
Hello, all you people out there in Gameland.
Now that's just, which one is it? It's the third octave on the middle, so it's from 656 up to 1312.
Hello,
That's what it sounds like in the dialogue. Now for the music bed, that's everything that resides and would be competing for the same sonic space that that part of the dialogue is. So anywhere, if you look at this waveform, where this volume output exceeds the volume output of this thing, your ear is going to have a tendency to hear this over the detail of this. So what we want to do is we want to make this quieter only in the places where this is audible. I really hope I'm explaining this well enough. So just listening to a couple of their sound snippets from the music bed. Okay, that's way up in the highs. Back to mid 1. See, now here you can hear that there's going to be a lot of competing noises from the dialogue. Oh, I'm over here. Huh. Right? Versus this stuff. Okay, great. So now what happens when you compress it? Well, you can actually see here, this third set of waveforms here is the sidechain compressed version of the sound bed. So we've got this, well, yeah, let's look at this one. Why not? You can see if I drag this thing over here, you can see where this thing is actually got a nice thick waveform. There's actually a drop here. Let me line it up and zoom her in. You see where, okay, well, he's saying something, and we've got a reduction in volume. Pretty cool, pretty high tech, pretty nifty. And therefore, it should be clearer than it was before, because, well, this is softer. That gets out of the way of the dialogue. So what does it sound like when it's compressed? Ah, you heard it. A little bit of a hiccup. That gets out of his, I guess it's game land. For all you people out in whatever, I don't know. Okay, and in the next one, you actually see the same kind of behavior. There's a lot of drop right where the dialogue hits, but only there, and that way, you know, it pops back up. And the other important part about this is you see these bass bands, they're not affected pretty much at all. The high bands, not affected at all. So your sound bed retains as much volume as it possibly could. Now again, these waveforms, I hit the compressor really hard. So you probably wouldn't see this kind of activity. Your normal compressor settings wouldn't be so dramatic as this. All right. And lastly, over here, I changed the release a little bit so that I wouldn't have so much of a pulsing feeling. If you listen to this one right here, you get a real bad jittery kind of sound. And over here is not as bad. You know, I just extended the release a little bit so that it would be just a pinch smoother. Okay, so that is multiband compression 101. Yeah, multiband, not just multiband compression, but multiband sidechain compressing. Very important to keep that straight because they are different. Okay, so now that I've explained the technique behind it, what does it actually sound like? Well, here's our altogether dialogue sample again. I'm just going to run it over the top of the entire thing. Now again, I hit this compressor really hard, so it's going to sound a little funky, but anyway.
Hello, all you people out there in Gameland.
Okay, we have both volume in our sound bed, and we can hear our dialogue snippet near about as perfectly as we possibly could.
Hello, all you people out there in Gameland.
Which is a heap better, if you'll remember, than comparing it to...
Hello, all you people out there in Gameland.
You know, you still have all of these competing frequencies overlapping different syllables of his most dynamic sentence in the history of man. Yeah. Okay, and with the moderate release, it sounded like...
Hello, all you people out there in Gameland.
I know, you probably can't really tell a whole lot of difference there, but trust me, there is some difference. Oh, and, wait, no, I'll save that for later. Okay, so how do we build this thing? Get on with it. All right. Yeah, okay, prepare for pain. All right, what I've got is our 9-band split from last time around. Just disregard all these other channels and everything. I'm trying to get them. Hey, you know what? Let me just drag this thing way over here. And that way we only see that. Okay. First thing I'm going to do is unplug the input and unplug the output of this first one. Okay, I'm going to take the whole shebang and duplicate it, just like so. So now I've got input copy to, lows copy to, etc., etc. I want it all to stay the same. I don't want to have to key the numbers again, so I just made it a copy of it. Now I can just reconnect my input and output. I don't know if that's necessary, but it always freaks me out because I don't want to make a duplicate of the mix channel and the combinator and all that kind of stuff, and sometimes I don't know how it behaves. It just does what it wants to. So, okay, getting on with it. Let's add our favorite compressor, whichever one is yours. You can do that one. I'm going to use the M class, and it did something I didn't want it to do by auto routing, so let's undo that and try it again. M-class compressor. Yay. All right, now I need 9 of these, so that's 4, where most people come from, and 8, and lastly, 9. Good job. Very happy with you right now. All right, and so now we will just run each of these 9. Let's see if I can get rid of some of the clutter here. Each of the output and returns from each of these channels into their own compressor. Ready, go. Quickly, we're on a schedule here. Da-da, 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 da-da. Wow. This is really entertaining television. Yeah. But there are 9 of them, and it does take a second to do it. Maybe this is too much routing. For too little return, leave that up to you. I just make the videos. Now, if you wanted to be studious, you could actually go in and change all the names. I'm not doing that right now. I will take my Yokos that I duplicated and bring them into the bottom end of this joker. And now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to take the outputs of all these guys down here and run them each into the same compressor that the corresponding output is run into from up here. So I went from top to bottom, so I'm going to do the same thing here. Whoops. Stop it. Okay, there we go. Output to sidechain. Sidechain to output 2, output 3 to sidechain, sidechain 4 to output 4, sidechain 5 to output 5, sidechain 6, 7, 8, 9. Great. And guess what? We're done. How do you use it? Well, you will set this up just like any other combinator. You'll run your sound bed or whatever it is that you want to compress into the combi input. Run the combi output into, wherever it goes to get sound output. Now, the thing you need to remember is the input here on the bottom set of Yokos. This is where you're going to put in the thing that you want to trigger the compressors, if you will. In this case of my demonstration, I used the dialogue sample and just ran a split. Where's he at? I know he's around here somewhere. This was him, Game Land. Right, so I just took his insert FX to device thing and I ran it into the input of the first Yoko, like so. And that way, I still have the Game Land sample playing when I have the sequencer running. And when I do this joker here, it doesn't interfere with that. We don't need to run the sum out to anything. Disregard the fact that these audio outputs aren't set up right now. trust me, I had to do a lot of configuring in order to get all this nice color-coded sonic goodness going on. Alright, so like I said, that's it. You're done. Again, all you have to do, run your bed into the combi and run a split into the bottom input there. Well, the top input of the bottom set of Yokos. You with me? Great. And now you too can sidechain compress whatever you want to until your heart is content, or you're filled with delight, or whatever. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next video. Oh, wait, one more thing. You know, try the same thing with other effects boxes, like maybe the Scream 4. Now, don't load it up with a whole lot of damage. Start with your damage nearly off. Put it on the tape setting, and, you know what? I'll make a video. Have a good day. We'll check you next time.